We focus on best of breed local food and beverage operators. We're not trying to like lift a successful business that's in Austin or someplace and see if it'll work in Northwest Arkansas. We're generally trying to see what's out in the market and then trying to help amplify their business. There are a lot of things that are different that we would have never anticipated. I don't think anybody knew the Pizzeria Ruby was going to be just as unbelievably a phenomena like it is, you know. In fact, we got to build more neighborhood around it so that the wait is more palatable.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Thanks for coming on. This is kind of a special one for me. Just obviously love what you guys do. Jason and Ward, High Street. Why don't y'all, I gave your names, but like maybe give a little bit of background here before we dive in.
All right. I'm Ward Davis. I'm a principal with High Street Real Estate and Development. Jason Keathley is my partner. I have been developing real estate in Northwest Arkansas on and off since 2005 when I first moved up here just in time to get my teeth kicked in by the Great Recession. But I've been focusing almost exclusively on town center projects or downtown type projects in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. So my background before that was finance. So I come from a finance background. Versus kind of other avenues into real estate development.
Yeah. All right. My name is Jason Keathley. My background is actually construction. Spent 20 plus years in construction, built a company, got out of it, and Ward talked me into coming over here to High Street 3 years ago.
Somehow.
You know, it's been a lot of fun, but I think I'm working more now than I have in the past, you know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Talk about like the challenge of building these walkable communities that may, you know, I think you guys first started, you and Warren first started, I feel like the big critique was this is not possible in Northwest Arkansas. This is not like we're too small. It's never going to be like this. Talk about changing the landscape and like what keeps you believing that can be possible, and like how do you do that?
Boy, there's layers in that question. I'm going to take it in kind of pieces, if you don't mind, and then let Jason kind of fill in the gaps, because part of the fun of the town center stuff is Jason's kind of evolution on his thinking about projects like Johnson Square, which is our kind of most obvious project right now. The impediments to developing a kind of mixed use neighborhood are regulatory first and foremost, but we've kind of gotten to the point where we've built enough that that cities appreciate what we do, so the regulatory hurdles aren't as high as they used to be. And really, at this point, the biggest impediments to doing a mixed use project is that there are so many components that you have to be conversant in each one of the components. You don't have to be an expert at each component, but you have to understand the individual pieces. So we're not apartment developers. We need to understand apartments because that's a big part of what we do. Mm-hmm. We're not single family lot developers, but they're an important component of what we do. And then the big one is kind of retail food and beverage. It's such an anchor for the neighborhoods we build, that understanding what rules you have to follow and what rules you can break to make retail successful. I find that's the piece where other developers that have come from a different background that try to evolve towards mixed use, that's where they really stumble, is that the retail / food and beverage piece is really awkwardly handled and therefore not very successful. You know, mm-hmm. A lot of times you'll see an apartment developer, with a very conventional apartment building, and they'll try to have ground floor retail, and it's just not cool. And
it's a disaster.
Yeah, it just doesn't do very well. It doesn't do very well at all. So those are the big pieces. I'll let Jason tell his thoughts on how he's evolved on like Johnson Square.
Yeah, so I come from a very black and white background, and so I built all of the major projects in Johnson. Anything commercial wise.
Yeah, it was a contractor for
When was the contractor?
for High Street
for that, and had a long relationship with Morgan and Ward, during that time frame. But the first building was for Washington Regional, and I was quoted in the office of going, man, I don't know what these guys are doing. This seems totally crazy. They're putting this nice building in the middle of a field. I just hope the check cashes. That was my statement, and then I've come from, okay, well, they got a good tenant, and it looks like it's doing good, and then we do the next one, and I'm like going, well, okay, here we go again, hopefully this works. And then by the time we got through with R&P and building, and then the last medical office building, I was like, even as the contractor, I was asking Ward and Morgan, how can we get involved? Thinking my contracting group would get involved on the investing side or whatever, because I became a believer, And I think a lot of it is proof of concept. It's finally at that point, and you can people understand it. But I think that it's hard to describe and create the secret sauce of making one of these projects work, and it's really how people interact with the buildings and the places in between the buildings, and that's just a hard thing to get right. Yeah. But it's really easy to get wrong. And I feel like we've got right now we have the right secret sauce in Johnson, and just can we build upon that?
Yeah.
So
I had an architect describe it, and it sounds really cheesy, but it's actually spot on. And I guarantee you, Jason Keathley will never use this phrase to describe it. But but our kind of North Star is trying to build a place that's worthy of love, is how it was described. And it does sound a little bit soft and fuzzy, but if people love what you're building, and if you can, it's pretty powerful, And there are people that appreciate Johnson Square differently than we ever anticipated on the front end. So, I just noticed a couple of times we mentioned Morgan Hooker. Morgan was my partner, and he was friends with Jason before I was even. Morgan passed away in 2022 suddenly, but and he and I started Johnson Square and started High Street. Yeah,
talk about building the business, like your background and like the origination of High Street with Morgan.
Yeah, so my background, when I first moved to Arkansas, I worked for the Stevens family in Little Rock, and kind of spent a decent amount of time working on corporate finance type projects, but also a decent amount of time working on Stevens family investments. And so I got, kind of a little bit of transactional knowledge and a little bit of kind of high finance investing knowledge, and found myself interested to the value proposition of real estate, and started doing real estate investments in the most basic areas of which was really single family homes in Little Rock with a couple of folks. Did reasonably well with that, and started thinking more about wanting to move to the real estate side. I got introduced to Morgan by a friend of mine, and ended up moving to Northwest Arkansas to work on real estate stuff. I really kind of liked what we were working on. But historically, I'd always found that wherever I moved, I would live in the historic district of town, and was attracted to that. I wasn't exactly sure why,
Yeah.
But but I always would pay more money to live in an older area of town that was walkable, and you could get to coffee shops and that sort of stuff, and hadn't put the pieces together. Morgan had just gotten in contact with a company, Dwani Plater Zybrick and Company, their planning firm. Their initial claim to fame was a project called Seaside in coastal Florida that a lot of people in Arkansas have visited. But it really kicked off kind of the new urbanist movement. And by talking to the folks that Jason and I still work with there, or are alumni of that firm, started seeing the zeros and ones of why I like different places. Why did I like going to Europe, and then wandering around for hours on end? Why do I like, why are my favorite neighborhoods? My favorite neighborhoods in Arkansas would be, Hillcrest and Little Rock, or the historic district in Fayetteville, or downtown Bentonville now, which has come on, and downtown Rogers, which Jason and I both love. Why am I attracted to those places in Arkansas? And if you broaden it, why are my favorite cities in the United States Savannah, Georgia, and the Seaport in Boston, and Magazine Street in New Orleans, and why am I attracted to those places? And they all have kind of a couple of things in common, and really you can kind of distill it down to they have a mix of unit types, so they have a mix of people, they have a mix of uses, so you've got people living there, you got people working there, and you've got fun things to do. And then the key element is walkability, because you can have the first two, and if you don't have it walkable, then it's not that great. The example I've been using lately is Weddington, on the west side of Weddington. You actually have you have density, you have a wide range of unit types. You've got little homes, big homes, you got a lot of apartments, you've got tons of commercial, but it's not walkable. You've actually got a lot of public space. It's not very thoughtfully utilized, but it's got almost all the components. And if it had the last component, it'd be great. So anyhow, I get to cover the soft and fuzzy parts. Jason gets to cover the.
So you realized, hey, there's an element of like, you like these things. And then so you're talking to this firm that led in the Seaside development. Yeah. Kind of what happened after that?
Yeah. So Morgan and I started working on projects with that firm. Started working on a project in Fayetteville, which is mine and Morgan's first, together with a third partner. Called Ruskin Heights, which now is Mission Heights, and we went through a bruising regulatory process, eventually got the project approved, but approved just in time to get smoked by the Great Recession. But at that point, I couldn't unlearn what I already learned. And what I had learned was people really appreciated, people pay more to live in downtown Fayetteville. And that's because there's a limited supply of that stuff, and and people appreciate it enough that they'll pay more for it. Okay, well, how do I turn that into a business model? There ought to be a way to capture non-commodity profits. If you can develop something that people appreciate like that, you should be able to make a strong return on it. It turns out it's a lot of work to do one of these projects. So my old boss at Stevens would call it high return on capital, low return on aggravation, which is probably about right. But we've gotten to where we've figured out the aggravation part pretty well. But that's how I first got into it. With the Great Recession, we lost that project. Morgan and I lost that project, kind of got sent back to the bottom of the Chutes and Ladders board, just like most people that were developers at the time. But I was lucky enough through a friend of mine that I'd met through the New Urban World. He was a developer that had kicked off a project called the Village at Hendricks for Hendricks College. It was designed by the same planning firm. And it was, interestingly enough, at about the stage we had gotten to with Ruskin Heights, which was infrastructure in the ground. The first couple of buildings started. And he was out of North Carolina. He said, listen, they're about to fire me. They need somebody on the ground to run this thing And so I went to, Hendricks, and I took over that project. And, really what I had was a little bit of knowledge and a lot more just absolute conviction it would succeed, and just ground away on that project. And it became, in a time when there wasn't a lot of noise in the market. I took over that project in 2010, which people forget how just dead the world was. I mean, just the entire real estate market was just not much was happening. And so there wasn't noise, so that project got a lot of attention, and it really, the first year was a slog, and the second year was a little bit of a slog. And by the time we wrapped it up in 2015, or wrapped up what Hendricks has done, the homes were selling at a 70% premium per square foot to the local market, 70,
Wow.
which is too much and not sustainable. And it's maintained a premium per foot, but it hasn't maintained that premium per foot. But it became a little bit of a phenomena. And it's a pretty modest neighborhood. It's not big. It's not, it's not as fine as Johnson Square will be or other projects that we're working on, but it was impactful, and it was impactful for that town. Conway's a great town, and people really appreciated it. So it was fun to work on and kind of see that what I thought I knew in concept actually worked in practice.
I mean, it's a beautiful project. I've been there multiple times. It's crazy. It's
pretty.
Doesn't fit in.
Yeah, right. It's tucked there comfortably between the Walmart, the interstate, and kind of the hood a little bit.
Yeah. So you had momentum there, and then talk about you came up here after that. That was the
So in 2015, Morgan had a relationship with a guy, Gerald Johnson, who was CFO of Tyson Foods kind of during the Halcyon years, and Morgan was trying to help him figure out what he wanted to do with his piece of property, and had thought about a town center neighborhood. It actually already started working on it, and asked me if I wanted to come up here and help him with it. So I started coming up here part time, and then he and I formed High Street, and I moved up here full time to partner with Morgan again. So, during the meantime, he'd done brokerage work. It's probably where you met him at some point, Cameron, I would imagine. But he did custom construction, kind of really high end custom construction. But so I came back up here and joined up with him.
Well, and just so people know, how are you living, making money along while you're doing this? Do you get a salary from some of these projects? I think the really unique thing about the world you guys live in is there's no script on how to get there. There's no there's no degree is gonna make sure you're successful in this industry.
No. That's the thing about real estate development in general, is that there's everybody that I know that's in the business successfully has gotten there from a different route. Jason's here from construction. Well, construction's a huge component. That's actually a great way to get there. You're Cameron. You're from a brokerage background, so you know a lot about real estate. But everybody has holes in their knowledge because there's so many aspects to development. You really got to be a jack of all trades, master of none, and fill gaps. I don't know anything about construction. I can't swing a hammer, but that's why partnering with Jason is so good, because his background is exemplary in that area.
It's hilarious.
Jason will tell you that's true.
Well, and talk about, so when you're planning for when Johnson Square was announced, I feel like there was, you're saying there was a lot of noise for the project in Conway. There was a lot of noise here locally, and it was because it was the first thing of its kind, nothing like it. But how much planning goes in before you can start turning dirt, and how much, and when you're building a deal like this, are you trying to hold it forever? What's the, where?
It's a frustrating amount of time
for
a construction guy.
Yeah.
So a construction guy, you get a set of plans because they've already gone through all that regulatory stuff, and you price it, and they go, yeah, it's in budget, and you sign a contract, and you start in 2 weeks, and 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, you're handing them the keys, and it's done, and the whole time you got your foot on the gas and never on the brake.
Yeah.
Well, development world is very frustrating for a guy like me. Because I'm used to putting my foot on the gas and never letting off. And man, there's just one hurdle after another hurdle with the regulatory process. Do you have sewer capacity? Do you not have sewer capacity? Do you have, does this meet whatever design code? Do you have enough parking spots? Do you have, all that kind of stuff? We don't like this, from city officials and all that type of stuff. So it is frustrating for me.
You just got to figure it out.
Yeah. And so it's been a learning process in general. And and one of the first things we did when we became partners is we kind of got several projects, due diligence started on them and drawing started on them and everything. And it's taken almost 3 years for us to go from hitting on no cylinders to hitting on maybe 6 of 8.
Yeah.
Fire's going. Yeah, fire's going.
And in a year, we may be humming.
Yeah, and next year we'll be hitting on all 8 if all these little things happen. All these little ifs.
You got to be ready though.
Yeah. And if this doesn't happen, then we're going to go over here and do this other deal and what have you. But we have to pay the house, is what I call it, which is our salaries and employees and rent and all that through basically development fees. So we have to start a project to collect a development fee.
And that it takes a. I was doing the math on it the other day. We had to build about $35 million a year in real estate to break even on without paying ourselves on staff and overhead. Well, that's not a non-meaningful amount. It's not a huge amount, but I mean, for us to pay ourselves a decent salary, we need to be developing $50 million a year of real estate. So it's a lift,
Oh, it's super impressive. So you kind of alluded to it a little bit. I think y'all's secret sauce is the food and beverage, the retail component of really programming. So talk about Johnson Square. Is that you? Is that Morgan? How'd you do that?
Morgan was a lot of that, but I've picked up a lot from him. But also, kind of added my own little piece to it as well. But it's funny. I'll talk to a lot of developers. I talked to one actually last week that was from out of town. It's like, man, y'all got lucky with the restaurants and at Johnson Square. I was like, we didn't get lucky at all. I mean, restaurant owners, especially because we focus on best of breed local food and beverage operators. We're not trying to lift a successful business out of that's in Austin or someplace and see if it'll work in Northwest Arkansas. We're generally trying to see what's out in the market and then trying to help amplify their business. And so you spend a lot of time just talking to them, talking to folks that have good restaurant businesses or good bar businesses or whatever, and trying to understand what their individual needs are. And if we're working on a lease, that means you're doing a lot of listening. The structure of Pizzeria Ruby's lease and the structure of Hellfellow Well Met, which is, Onyx, they're completely different. So, and they're a function of what each business was trying to accomplish at that time. And as we're working on kind of future leases right now, sometimes it evolves for those operators, so I'll use kind of hypothetical example. If somebody is is open and run restaurants before, but has never owned a restaurant, they may be capital constrained, and you can do and if you believe in them enough, you can do a percentage rent deal and you can participate in their upside success. And that can work out really well for you, but also take a lot of the risk out of it from their standpoint. And sometimes a business is operator is really successful and they, are generating a lot of cash and, they want to keep their rent as low as possible. Well, you can structure a deal where they, pay for their finish out of their own cash and you keep their rent a little bit lower. To some degree, we'll prime the pump, to get the right operator by letting them have lower rents than other businesses in the neighborhood. Definitely willing to do that, but don't always have to, or don't always lean that direction because it's a two-way street. You build a great neighborhood, they also want to be in your neighborhood, but they are an important component of what we do. So we try to be really flexible with how we structure those relationships. And then, just little things at the margin. We did one thing during COVID. Remember at the beginning of COVID, nobody thought any restaurants were going to exist, after COVID. They're all going to go out of business. And regardless of land on the political spectrum, one thing that Trump did unassailably well was respond exceptionally quickly to the COVID crisis with financial support for businesses. And part of that was the PPP program, which help keep businesses alive. And it was based on number of employees, and a lot of it was aimed at food and beverage. Well, we did a PPP loan for High Street, which was a small company, and our CFO said, listen, this is so easy to do. I got the relationship with the bank. I've got the process for filling out the paperwork all already worked out. And it was his idea, our CFO, Randy Meyer. And so we ran the PPP process for 47 different businesses that ranged from my parents' little lawn care business to pretty much all the restaurants that we worked with and their restaurateur friends and architects.
Wow.
And it was particularly important for like independent restaurant folks because they're afraid of two things in the world. One is the government, the other one is banks. And you got to deal with both of them to get that financing. But it was so important to helping them get over the hump. And just by Randy having his ear to the ground and us having relationships with restaurants, we were able to help them. And those guys talk, they're like, and you become friends with them. Yep. It's hard to get in with them, but once you're friends with them, they trust you a little bit, and they don't necessarily trust developers usually. And you can kind of build on that. If you're somebody that's building something in an environment where they want to be, and you listen to what their needs are and you structure a deal with them that responds to those needs, and that if something weird comes along, you've got a plan for helping them, that's a big deal. We got a project in downtown Rogers, the most susceptible businesses during COVID. The second that COVID hit, it was the 1907 building where Onyx has their headquarters. We got a loan. We went back to our bank and got kind of basically deferred some of our loan payments, and were able to immediately, pass that along to the more vulnerable tenants in that building that couldn't operate, so that they could, okay, we'll extend your lease a little bit, but you don't have to make payment. We're not having to pay the bank. You don't have to pay us. Mm-hmm. When we start having to pay the bank again, you'll be able to do that. Well, shoot, those folks, they remember that,
Oh, yeah.
So, anyhow, that was a long form answer, but there are a lot of components to having those relationships, and we spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah. And when you went into the Johnson Square project at the very beginning, did you know the full scope of like, hey, you started the second phase right now. Did you know that, like, kind of when you first went into it, and what was when you approach something like that,
Well, I'm kind of answering the question I think that you're asking about, like, did we know what the neighborhood was going to be? We knew that it was going to be mixed use, and we knew that it was going to have, small houses, big houses, apartments, and, commercial, but there are a lot of things that are different that we would have never anticipated.
Yeah.
And I'm looking behind you right now at the plan, the lower right plan was what was designed at the original charrette, and it's got less, apartments and less, in particular, the big difference is less office, but also less food and beverage, because we didn't realize that we didn't fully appreciate how convenient the location is. And so the plan has evolved kind of that to the left, and it evolved yesterday even further. But you need to, by having a plan that the rough form is in place, but the components can be flexible. You can respond to what the market demand is. We didn't understand that the medical mile was going to start getting built in Springdale. And so now we've got a lot more medical interest than we anticipated, because if you want to be in the medical mile and don't want to be in a 150,000 square foot building surrounded by a parking lot, we're your guys,
Yep.
So we beefed up that component of the neighborhood. So. Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so flexibility is like, and then there are a lot of things like, no, we had no idea what was going to happen. We got, on one hand, we recruited in the food and beverage tenants, and, like when somebody says we got lucky, I kind of bristle about it, but we did get lucky that they're as good as they are. I mean, I don't think anybody knew the Pizzeria Ruby was going to be just as unbelievably a phenomena like it is,
3-hour waits.
Yeah. Ridiculous waits that people are patient for. In fact, we got to build more neighborhood around it so that the wait is more palatable,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I believe it. And so talk about, so you did that. That was kind of the first form of Johnson Square. And then the focus on downtown Rogers, kind of the 1907 building, kind of when that happened. And then obviously what y'all are doing right now in downtown Rogers. Give us a little snippet on like why that became the next focus. I mean, it seems like it was kind of clear from like, hey, this is this style of things that you enjoy.
Well, I think that was Morgan, looking around one corner and another corner, and maybe looking at his back. Because I met him at the 1907 building one cold morning. I think it was probably a November morning or something like that. At like 10 o'clock, there was not any cars in downtown Rogers at all. Pick your spot you wanted to park. And he wanted to show me that building along with a couple of other buildings. That building had like trash cans collecting water from a tarp that they bought. Wow. And he was so excited about what I saw as something you tear down. And he was so excited about a coffee shop.
We paid $12 a foot for that building, and it was vastly overvalued.
And so he's looking for a budget on getting this thing to a certain deal, and he's telling me all of his great ideas and everything. And Morgan and I were close enough friends. He wasn't just a client; he was a friend. Yeah. And so I just told him how it was all the time, and didn't worry about it. I knew I was going to get work from him one way or another, and he was going to give work to somebody else. Yeah. But I told him, I was like, man, I don't know if we're the guys for you on this, but because this is going to be a lot of hand holding, and I don't have that kind of staff. Yeah. I have the staff that you have a design, ground up construction. We're your guys. We have that staff, but I don't have the hand holding staff, you know. I'll give you a budget so you can take it to the bank and you can work off of it, and I'm sure you'll find somebody cheaper. Yeah. That was my comment, but I'll do what I can. And so I put some numbers and gave it to him, and he later found the right guy, to put it together. But the whole time I was like, what the heck is he thinking? This town is dead. I mean, there's boarded up everywhere.
Yeah, nothing happening.
Nothing happened. Yeah.
You go through on the way to the lake.
Yeah. It's just, exactly.
And when was that? 2017, 2018?
Before that, 2015 when we bought the building. Yeah. I mean, there was nothing happening in Rogers. It was dead. That was the most catalytic thing I've ever been a part of. Yeah. And that was Morgan. I would not have done that but for Morgan. I mean, I got to give him credit. And then he and John Allen with Onyx got together, and that was before Onyx is what it is now. I mean, they'd opened the Bentonville office, and they were definitely rolling, but it wasn't the phenomenon that it is now. But John and Morgan were the ones that could really kind of see what was going, and they built off of each other from a design standpoint. And of course, Morgan was a design genius, and John is an unrestrained design genius, and has great support with the architects that he works with as well, Bradley Edwards in particular. But those two, man, it was a hell of a thing to watch. I've got a dinner coming up at Heirloom at the beginning of September, and that's a space that, it's obviously got an unbelievable chef, but the chef and Morgan had a budget of $115,000 to finish out the entire space, including cooking equipment, which meant they couldn't hire a designer. So the two of them figured it the hell out. And I think they spent like $125,000 or something we busted the budget by like 10 grand. When I'm in that space, that reminds me of Morgan more than any other place, because it took all that he had in his noggin to help that place come together. And now it's, I mean, I don't know how many years it's been open, but it's still the hardest reservation
to get
in
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Talk about how important conviction is, and maybe for you, how you've learned, because that's just conviction. Someone just being convicted when they walk in that space. Right. You're a construction guy. You're a numbers guy. How have you adapted your mindset from?
Well, I've always been the type of person that just will lean into it and make it happen. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not. If there's a roadblock, I'm going to figure out a way to get around that roadblock. And if I'm a believer, you know, and so. It's not any different in that, but it's just now I have some uncontrollables, with cities and stuff. because generally in construction, I have all the controllables. If that sub's not working out, I'll make a few phone calls, find another sub. That supplier doesn't have something, make 4 or 5 phone calls, find a supplier that has it so that we keep on schedule, But it's very difficult to do that with the city aspects and utility aspects,
What do you think's the big, if we could, try to educate or change, something from municipality level across Northwest Arkansas, where do we need to, I think it's a collective effort on anything, whether we're construction, development, but the municipality side, what do we need to try to steer over the next 10 years, moving forward?
It's evolved. It's interesting. It's evolved a lot. Where I think that that the issues lie on the municipal front. When Morgan and I started this, especially with Ruskin Heights, where we had it was a knockdown, drag out because the idea of a mixed use neighborhood sounded a whole lot like bringing in scummy apartment renters into somebody's fancy neighborhood, and now people understand, okay, when they develop something mixed use, it's actually fabulously nice and it's, energetic and that sort of thing. So we don't get kind of the zoning restrictions. We don't get the, reluctant city staff or even planning commissioners, city council members, anymore. We almost run into more kind of regulatory burden because cities like what we do. I mean, they kind of get in the weeds with us too much, and listen, we're the pros, so kind of give us a lot of flexibility. They almost get in the weeds with us too much because they like what we do. We're doing a little bitty building in downtown Springdale, which has, when Patsy Christie, she just retired. She was very knowledgeable about what we do, and they have a form-based code that's really supposed to support what we're building down there. And they were incredibly supportive of this little building that we're doing, and it took forever to get to a permit there. And it wasn't because they didn't like what we were doing; it was because they
kind of place.
The rules that they had put in place to try to help us, and they did not. They were in our way. What we need generally is flexibility to do what we do. And that comes up over and over. Is that the places will kind of try to tinker on our stuff a little bit when really we've got it pretty well licked. So we need flexibility. Jason and I need flexibility. But the catch is, I don't necessarily want them to give every developer flexibility, because I don't know that every developer develops as responsibly as we do. So, from a bigger picture standpoint, when we start talking about housing issues and not building enough in Northwest Arkansas, and definitely that's happening as well. The issue used to be at the zoning level, you couldn't develop apartments here or there, that sort of thing. Now it's much more at the code level. Just if you read through city code, the cities know this, when you talk to the planning director in Fayetteville, he understands there's lots of, incongruous code in there in Fayetteville.
Explain what you mean. So for people who have no background in this at all, code, what do you
so code is zoning is kind of the big picture, where you can put mixed use, where you can put single family, where you can put industrial. Well, that's kind of been made flexible enough that it's at a very comfortable level. We can do what we do, but protect folks that need protection. And that took a while to get that modulated. But code is the hundreds of pages of, the very fine grained minutia of how parking works, or how signage works, or how setbacks relative to roads work, and that sort of thing. And code, when it evolves over time, a lot of times somebody will develop something, the city won't like it, and so they'll put in another piece of code to prevent that from ever happening again. Mm-hmm. But they almost never take anything away from the code. So, naturally over time you get a lot of it that each individual piece was probably very rational when it was added to the code, but as a whole, it becomes very difficult to work within that matrix. And so every once in a while, you probably need to scrap the whole thing and like be very deliberate on what you put together, which is exactly what Rogers has done and exactly what Bentonville is doing right now. And I hope Fayetteville follows behind.
Yeah. So talk about what's that been like in Rogers? I mean, you guys have projects rolling in Rogers. So how's the experience been?
We love what they do in Rogers.
Yeah, we don't.
No.
Rogers is probably one of the easiest cities for us. I know it's not for everybody else, but for us to work in because they work with us. Mm-hmm. They're supportive of what we're doing.
And they understand what we're doing, and they
and they know that we care.
Yeah,
we're just not throwing up something that's cheap, and 10 years later you're tearing it down because it's just, we're building quality and something that fits within the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We're wrapping up 2 apartment buildings right now behind the 1907. Hopefully getting a TCO today.
Oh wow! Congrats.
Yeah, hopefully.
How many units?
45 units in 2 buildings total. Okay. So 20 something in each one.
Wow. Yeah. 1 beds, 2 beds. What's the?
Yep. We got 1 bedroom, studios, and 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
We're excited about that one because it'll be the first project since I came over that we're completing.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right in the middle of all the obviously 97, but like the Ozark Brewery. I mean, you're in the middle of of everything there.
Yeah, you're a chipping wedge away from 1907, the brewery, and a couple of restaurants.
Yeah,
which is great. And we kind of stepped out there. We'll see how it works out. But we did convert a 2-bedroom into a 1-bedroom. Then we have a secured bike storage. Because we're right there on the bike trail. There's tons of bike trail stuff. So if you own your own bike, you don't have to carry it all the way up to the 3rd floor. You go on the 1st floor, fob in, you go in there, you lock up your bike in this room. It's got a little workstation and everything in it. Hopefully that pays off. We think it's a good ad, for the location anyway.
It's interesting because, we were just talking about how dead downtown Rogers was not that long ago. And now the amenity for this apartment project is downtown Rogers. Yeah. We don't have any conventional amenities.
Yeah.
We don't have any. Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful units in an awesome location now. Awesome. Half a block from, First and Walnut, which is Main and Main,
Yeah.
And I bet in 20 years, that's an irreplaceable location. You won't be able to do it,
Yeah. Well, I don't know what architect you used on that deal, but it
Rob
really,
Sharp.
I mean, it fits. It looks like those have already been there in a way. It's...
We've got,
and it'll look more like that in 10 years.
Yeah,
it'll look more comfortable.
Yeah, you should tell about the history, the made-up history.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah. It's funny. We've got with people working on it. Rob was kind of trying to draw architectural, inspiration from kind of local stuff, and one of the buildings was named the Ritter Building, and I'm not really sure the history of it. One of the buildings that was there, it was a very small building that was dilapidated when we bought it, and so he started going off of the name Ritter, and then he said, "Well, this looks like it used to be a factory here. What did they make?" He's like, he said they made spools where they put wire and this sort of thing. We hired a guy named Dayton Castleman to do some artwork on the building, really kind of signage, kind of signage-based artwork. Well, Dayton is an expansive thinker. He is a art curator. That's his main background. And he started doing a little research on downtown Springdale, and he started putting together a history of the Ritter brothers and their spool company, which started off making, I don't remember what it was, like barrels that then evolved into spools with wire, and then and really took off during the heroic age during, World War II and all this stuff. And he wrote an entire history of these buildings. It's all bullshit. It's like complete made up history. Well, we're going to have a couple of little Easter eggs.
Yeah, like QR codes.
That
go takes you to the website. Tells you all the history of these buildings.
Yeah, those buildings.
Yeah.
And that are brand spanking new, but don't necessarily look that way.
10 years from now, somebody will believe.
Yeah, someone's going to move here from Austin or whatever and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is a cool old building." It's like, it's not.
We've been in the 1907 building and have had people walk in, and when you first walk in, it's got tiled 1907.
Yeah.
And talk about how they remember that as a little girl seeing
the tile.
No, we put it in new.
We named it because when it was built in 1907. It was never the 1907 building till now.
Well, and that's like I think the reality of Northwest Arkansas is we were so small when in the 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
There's just not not that many old buildings.
No, there's not any old
No
buildings.
architectural history, except Fay Jones kind of kicked in a bunch, but no old architectural history, hardly at all.
So, creating it. Y'all are creating it.
Yeah.
We're sitting in a house that was built in 1851, where our office is, which is
Maybe the oldest building up here.
I don't know how many pre-Civil War buildings are in Northwest Arkansas or in Fayetteville. We were looking, the four of us were looking this morning. This building was 22 years old when Old Main began construction. So, there's just not much that's old here,
Yeah. Well, and talk about, so I think every developer's got a kind of a unique style. Y'all, obviously talked about like what focus is, what do you right now, you talking about finishing those buildings in downtown Rogers,
Right.
more coming there, is talk about like what are you working on right now? And then I want to talk about the future too, kind of what that holds, but
the big project is right now is the warehouse district in Johnson that we're working on. We broke ground there, but we're still working through leasing and still fine tuning the buildings. That's a big project.
What is it?
Okay. Well, this is, the idea is, in Northwest Arkansas, there's not any old buildings, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you go to Miami, Detroit, any of these big cities, they have these old warehouse districts that used to do, make zippers or clothing or buttons or whatever. And that's all been offshored now. Mm-hmm. And so those buildings sat there dilapidated for years and years and years. And then finally some developer went in there and bought them for $1 a square foot and renovated them. Right. Yeah. And now it's the cool place to go have a beer or live, co-working. Yeah. It's now the place to go hang out. And probably the closest thing, to that's in Miami, there's a place called the Wynwood Walls, and it's kind of art-based old warehouse, district. Mm-hmm. And I got a close friend that works down there. And, but we're creating that. Mm-hmm. So we're going to build some new buildings that are going to look like old warehouses. We're going to put a lot of art-based signage and other art all through the deal, through the project. And, of course, our anchors are going to be two great restaurants. Yep. And so that's the concept. It's going to be a true mixed use with 72 apartments, a 40,000 square foot med office or office, and then these restaurants. It's mixed in retail.
And how big is a project like that?
This one's got roughly 81,000 square feet of office and retail, and the 72 apartments. We're at 50 something million total?
55 million.
55, yeah.
Mm. And in the way you guys structure these deals, is it different across deal type? Like taking down land, holding it for long periods of time, or your hold times similar across projects? Or
well, the hold time on the land's different, but our methodology is buy the land in cash. That way we don't have an interest clock, stressing us out, having to think about it or whatever. Then capitalize on opportunities within the marketplace and design and start a project. So that's the way we've been handling it.
But a lot of times,
sometimes we have land partners too in the deal. Sometimes it's just us, but on the land side, it's different in every deal. So
more recently, we've been recruited into properties, but we're picky as hell about the piece of land, and it's got to be exactly right.
Location. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's in y'all's box? What's right?
We love anything on 49 between Fayetteville and Bentonville Rogers. So we like being close to the spine in Northwest Arkansas. We love downtown Rogers. We just feel like that energy is fantastic. We really like what's happening in downtown Springdale, but find it a very hard place to break in. But encourage. We've got a little project there, but we love what's happening there. But we haven't done anything in downtown Bentonville, but downtown Bentonville doesn't need us. You know, it's got folks that are doing great stuff without us. So, but yeah, our you know, kind of a lot of our big opportunities are up and down 49 in downtown Rogers. You know?
Yeah. And in our mindset that, you know, when I first moved up here, it was 2006. Downtown Bentonville was dead.
Yeah.
I wish I'd have bought every house. I wish I'd have moved there, just bought houses, started renting houses and did whatever. Now I look back at it and we really feel like, you know, Rogers and Springdale are, you know, they're just less than 10 years behind what Bentonville is right now. Maybe it doesn't get to the level of Bentonville, you know, but it's not going to be very far behind. And probably the Rogers has got the best location to have the best shot of getting close to what Bentonville is now in 10 years, just because it's, you know, 15 minutes from the home office.
It's got the best bones in Northwest Arkansas too.
It's
few old buildings exist here.
It's got blocks,
in downtown
several
Rogers.
blocks of great old buildings where, you know, if you really think about it,
Great grid.
you know, Bentonville just had the ones around the square.
Yeah.
And they got off the square, there wasn't much, you know, and Springdale just has, you know, just a handful right around Emma and Holcomb, you know, and that's it. You know, it's not like what we have in Fayetteville with all of Dixon and then the square, you know. So
Has that plant in downtown Rogers been a deterrent at all, or do you think it's you're able to kind of work around it?
It doesn't help, you know, but it's downtown, you know. It's also got a train track that runs 1 inch from our apartments, you know. So it sounds like it's going through your brain when the train comes by, you know. People who live downtown, like, you know, just overlook stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal, you know.
Yeah, and I can't see that, you know, 20 years from now, who's to say that plant's going to be there?
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, things get more efficient, and, you know, old plants, you know, are less efficient. I can just see that being, you know, changed into something else. It seems like there was one done in Bentonville like that too.
Downtown Rogers needs more people living there. You know? I mean,
Yeah.
downtowns function much more effectively when you have people living and working and enjoying it. Downtown doesn't work very well. It's just an entertainment district that people come to for the weekends. It doesn't work well. I mean, even downtown Bentonville hit another gear when people really started living there, you know.
Yeah. We'll talk about construction right now. I feel like one of the things I keep hearing over and over again and experiencing is just where are costs? How do you keep them in control? How do you? I mean, as long as you've been doing this, like, how hard is it right now compared to the last 10 years, and what are you kind of seeing on the horizon? You know, next.
Man. I don't know how you keep it. You know, I wish somebody would tell me that how you keep the costs in track, you know, on track or whatever. It's a constantly moving target, but it seems like it's always moving up. That's the problem. You know, so it is a struggle to get, you know, construction costs in line to make a performer work and current rent rates and all that. I focus here mainly on the small things. You know, some people get caught up on, this is a pretty building, whatever. Well, I'm trying to tweak the things that the average person walking up there will never see, you know, that's going to add just incremental small dollars to the bottom line over and over and over again. And before you know it, that few $1,000s is turned into $400,000 or $500,000 in savings on the construction side. And that could be from like shortening a water line. Hey, just don't run it this way, just run it that way. To, you know, change elevations on buildings. And, you know, we're digging into all those little details and the SD drawings and the DD drawings and trying to get it all right to make sure that when we have construction drawings, there's no VE. You know, that like, hey, we're hitting budget.
We've thought about it.
We already got it figured out and we're moving forward instead of, I feel like a lot of developers, you know, design the Taj Mahal, the greatest thing there, and they love it and it's beautiful and it's great, and then they can't afford it.
Yeah. And
that's what's happening in the marketplace, where we're trying to design to what we can afford
and then stick the landing
on the construction price at that point. And we've been successful on that on the last 2 of the 3 projects, we were successful. I got the numbers in. It's like, great, this thing's under budget.
Yeah.
All right, do we want to add that art piece in?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or, well, we can always add that in at the end. Let's just go ahead and build it. And in case there's any issues, then we'll tack that on at the end.
Yeah.
You know, so the project in Rogers, you know, we stuck the landing on it, managed it, you know, really well within our office, and was fortunate enough to select a great contractor. And I think we're going to end up with like hardly spending any contingency.
Wow.
So that contingency now can roll to a budget for maintenance.
Yeah.
You know, and then
So
all of our
a month
investors.
and a half off a construction timeline
Yeah.
over what we had. So that's month
It's
and a half
interest carry.
of interest carry.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
know.
we've saved.
So we've done all those are what I'm talking about, incremental things that we can save along
yeah.
the lines to help. And so I mean, I'm pretty proud of all of those mechanisms. Now, if we can just get it leased up in a pretty quick time frame, I think our investors are going to be real happy.
But part of that's business model too. Like, so, you know, where we do spend money is we want something that's going to be enduringly beautiful because we're trying to build stuff that's Class A day one and has a real chance to be Class A in 30 years, which sounds ridiculous, but if you do it right, it can be done. So you spend a little bit of money on design, and we spend money for the same reason on durability. We will spend some money to make sure that we don't have water infiltration issues because we're not flipping it to somebody else that's down the road. Generally, we're a lot of times holding on to stuff, and so we spend a little more money on durability. But you get away from those 2 things, and I mean, we build some beautiful apartments. Those apartments in Johnson or the apartments in Rogers, they're 3-story walk up. They are simple buildings, fundamentally simple buildings. You spend a little bit of money and it's made out of brick and is, you know, durable and beautiful, but you're building a fundamentally simple building, and it's in such a great location that we're not putting in a bunch of ostentatious amenities that might not get used. You know, it's next door to, you know, Onyx, the best coffee shop in the Northern Hemisphere, you know, according to whatever rating that was. And the same thing with Johnson Square. Right now, our amenities are restaurants and that sort of thing that actually generate rent and add to the bottom line. They aren't just consuming cash. So, you know, thoughtful about how you put the ingredients together, and you can have something that feels more, and it is more expensive if you just look at an individual piece, but as a whole, it's actually less expensive and higher quality. So,
Wow.
It's cool. So design, number 1, location, number 2, hold it forever.
location
3.
number 1,
Yeah, location number 1.
design, and that includes a lot, which includes, you know, kind of durability, and within that is number 2. Business model is that we can't predict what interest rates are going to do in the future, which means we can't predict what cap rates are going to do in the future, which means we can't predict valuations in the future. But if we build something that's durable and that is enduringly beautiful, then we can choose when we sell. And we don't necessarily, we aren't going in and saying we're going to hold on to this forever. We're going in and saying we can hold on to this forever. But if 2022 rolls around and cap rates get in the 4% range again, we're going to unload some real estate. So
How do you have that conversation with an investor though? Just like, hey, this.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a good question.
someone who's got a long term.
That's a great question, because a lot of investors look at that. Hey, I'm going to invest in a market rate apartment complex, and they're going to sell it in 5 years, and this is what my return is. And
Yep.
I like the area, I like the project, I like the developer, and they go that route. And it's having to change that mindset. You know, that, hey guys, this is a long term deal. You know, of course, our goal is to get your investment back to you and as quickly as possible, you know, and then we're playing with house money. But it's if we were market rate investors with some of the stuff we have, you know, developers, I think raising money would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know, because
Sort
that's
of flipping.
it's a mindset of that. deal. But I mean, the ones that we have on, give you an example, the investors we have on Ritter and Spool, we sent out the warehouse district. Man, almost all of them doubled what they did in Ritter and Spool or more, and said we're in. Like within like a few weeks, we had raised quite a bit of money without any problem. And of course, I got the big heads like, well, this one's gonna be easy compared to Ritter and Spool raising money in capital, and so now I'm having to work a little bit.
The last little bit.
Yeah, for the last little touch, which is not a lot in the big picture.
Yeah. And are most of these folks local, or are they, I mean, obviously we're getting so much attention, our market's getting so much attention now regionally. What's the...
Most of them are local or have local connections.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're from here and they moved away, have done well for themselves in whatever businesses they're in, and like the area and trust us.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it. But we got a group coming in from Miami next week. To look at everything. They may do something, might not do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
When you have a long term or an open ended investment mentality, you lose a swath of real estate investors. You lose private equity funds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They for very good reason, they have, hey, we're going to take your money on this date, and in 10 years you're getting all your money back, which means any given investment, we got a 3 to 5 year time horizon to get out. Which means whatever has happened with interest rates and therefore valuations, that's just the deal. You're on any given asset, you're not able to maximize. You're a function of timeline. Well, what we've found is that family offices or wealthy individuals, they don't like that aspect of necessarily, not all of them, but a lot of them don't like that aspect of being roped into an artificial time horizon that doesn't profit maximize on individual investments, or is not allowed to profit maximize on individual investments. So we're just looking for the ones that have recognized that and have a shared understanding of how that works. And that the same group also understands that the concepts of reinvestment risk. When you sell something, finding another investment that performs well is hard. It's not easy.
Especially right now. Good luck.
Especially right now. Good luck. Where are you going with that 1031, buddy? And then also the timeline. So if you're calculating, okay, if we can flip this in 3 years, it looks like we've got a great return for 3 years, and our return may be over 10 years, and it may be a 15 or 16% IRR, and the 3 year may be a 18 or 19% IRR. But by the time you calculate in investment risk and your money set on the sidelines for a year, ours is looking pretty good again on a pure math basis.
Yep.
Well, if you can add a couple of elements to that, and for us, a big piece is, again, is that ability to hold at a higher level longer. Then it gives you a lot of flexibility and actually kind of juices returns over the time. These are at the margin, a little bit esoteric arguments and so forth. So you have to have somebody that has already kind of come to those conclusions themselves. We got a couple of those, and each project we kind of add one or two more, and we're kind of getting to where we can cobble it together pretty well. So we're not pros at that.
No, we're not. We're
capital raising.
Especially from my world, I never had to do that. So this is all kind of new to me. So it's calling buddies up,
Well,
start going through the Rolodex.
You guys are humble because you're doing it.
There's another piece is we add a lot of value to land. If we own a piece of land, like Johnson Square was worth X dollars.
It was farm.
When we roll into projects, we get pretty staggering, appraised values for developed pads that then allow us to leverage a decent amount going forward by doing stuff that's kind of got that's it's a flywheel. It takes a while to get it turning, but by adding a lot of value to the overall piece of property, you can kind of roll some profits forward, very effectively.
Could we dive a little deeper in Johnson Square? I'm just curious. Like, I can't picture another piece in my head that's similar where you have professional office space, medical office space, single family homes, multifamily food and beverage. Like, it's just a super unique deal. So when you put
It's
something
like every downtown. I mean, one idea it's unique, and another idea it's not. But go ahead. Yeah.
But from one raw piece of land, doing it from the ground up, I mean, it just seems unique. Are y'all holding the pads that you got ready for single family? Are you holding the apartments? Like, how does that work?
We basically, we or groups that we're involved with own all of anything commercial, which includes multifamily to us, and then sell lots, single family lots. We're kind of evolving in how we do that to going forward, but. I mean, the people that make the most money in a neighborhood like Johnson Square are the first home buyers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, they're kind of sticking their neck out a little bit. They get we're just trying to get something built that shows the neighborhood. And so the first folks that built that built homes in Johnson Square they're gonna stomp it. I mean, they already have, but they really will when we kind of get the next phase rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, these neighborhoods do. It's a criticism, but it's also a measure of success that they appreciate like mad.
Mm-hmm.
And Johnson Square will be a good example. I mean, it just will.
Yeah. It's awesome.
But we're working on other town center projects in the region. So
Drake Farms. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, Drake Farms. We're partnered with a specialized real estate group on Drake Farms. Which is North Fayetteville between Garland and Gregg, and between Drake on the south side and the interstate on the north side. So just west of the hospital. In my mind, and I think can say this objectively, it's the finest big piece, undeveloped piece in Fayetteville. I say undeveloped. The first phase is in construction right now. We built one office building that Jason was a contractor on for the Pendergraft family. It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yes.
It's one of the
Stone.
prettiest buildings.
It is. Gorgeous building.
It's the nicest thing I've ever been associated with being built.
Me too.
But the first phase is being built around that, which has got a couple of food and beverage locations, nothing to be announced yet, but a couple of food and beverage locations, and then has some apartments and some townhomes. And it'll be a mixed use neighborhood like Johnson Square, but more dense and more intense.
Walkable.
Walkable, definitely, couple of commercial nodes that'll focus on food and beverage.
Elementary school.
This is announced we haven't closed, but the school district is buying a parcel and working very closely with us on how it integrates into the neighborhood. Washington Regional has, I think, ultimately 40 acres, and I think they've taken down close to 30 so far. So they'll have more square footage. I think they'll definitely have more acreage
for
on
sure.
the west side of Gregg than they do on their current campus on the east side. Ultimately,
that's crazy.
So that's a heavy medical kind of anchor. There's also a 12 acre walnut grove that was planted a little bit over 100 years ago. That's being preserved in the neighborhood and being developed, thoughtfully around. It'll be a cool piece. So. But the first phase is under construction right now. The second phase is in heavy design, and the third phase is in conceptual design. So, I mean, it's more than the rest of our careers to be developed, probably.
Yeah, it's a 15, 20-year deal.
Yeah.
Over $1 billion.
Yeah. It's so ambitious. I can't think about it all at once. It's too intimidating. Yeah. You gotta, when you're eating an elephant, you gotta do it one bite at a time,
Yeah, sure.
We're one biting it right now.
How do you, so I assume you kind of set like project goals year by year. Hey, we hope we're here by this date, by this day. I mean, you kind of have a roadmap of a 15-year plan is what you're essentially,
Basically, yeah. And you're also watching the market.
Yeah.
Because since this is Drake's heavy multifamily, and, what's the absorption rate for apartments, you want to roll out, I think this first phase is roughly 120. Second phase is going to be roughly the same amount, and so on and so on. And it'll be like every 12 to 14 months, something like that, based off of whatever the market demand is.
Yeah. Let's talk about the future. Like what do you, obviously this project's a 15-year project. Outside of that, like what types of things do you want to work on? obviously you have this like history now of like, you can look back and see the impact of a lot of these deals. What's the focus going to be over the next decade, 5-10 years?
Next decade, it would be, of course, Drake. I would say 10 years from now, Johnson will be pretty much done unless we don't have an office tenant and we have an office pad or something like that.
Yeah, but
I bet that's probably complete. We'd probably have done a couple of other big projects downtown Rogers. We're working on stuff down there. Not really ready to announce or anything on it, but we're working diligently on some stuff down there.
We got a couple of bigger kind of town center potential projects that we are in due diligence and discussion, I would say, on those that again aren't
that are another 10 or 15 year deals.
Yeah.
So
I think Johnson's given us the credibility to for now landowners are coming and say, hey, I don't know what to do. I bought this. I want to build my office here, but I bought 40 acres. I only need 5. What do I do with all this? Would you guys help me?
Yeah.
And so we're working through processes on how to do that.
Well, it's way easier said than done. It's like,
yeah.
People don't know where to start on something like this.
Oh, yeah. Nobody does. It's when you've been plugging away at something for a while, stuff that seems obvious to you is like absolutely completely not to somebody else. And then and with the town center stuff, it's so different than other types of development that it's very that you can see when people start talking about it, the same pitfalls keep coming up in conversation. I was like, this is the reason not to do it that way. But it's not a, like you said, there's not a playbook for becoming a developer. There's certainly not a playbook for kind of mixed use town center type projects. It's just that's well understood. I mean, there is a playbook. It's just not well understood yet.
I mean, like you're saying, it's a team sport, and y'all offer such a great value to landowner, tenant, investor, who wants to be a part of something like this. Just and doesn't have any bandwidth to do it.
And it just takes it's a lot of work, a lot of elbow grease. We were having a conversation with a group yesterday, and we put a lot of value in the elbow grease side of doing something like this. You're starting to see a lot of town center type projects being announced in Northwest Arkansas that are very much half baked when they're announced. We don't, we hadn't publicly announced Drake Farms yet, we're under construction, which to me gives and I think because people have seen it done with, I think it's Johnson Square,
Yeah, it's Johnson Square, because it's,
people get happened. But because it's been done, it must not be that hard. Shoot,
Yeah, what do you think?
Just because we pulled it off didn't mean it was easy, So on one hand, I want to discourage more. I want to encourage more development like this. But on the other hand, I want to help people understand the lift that's required. It's a lift.
Yeah. Well, kind of getting towards wrapping up here. I don't know if you have anything else here. A couple questions we asked everyone at the very end. So why build a business in Northwest Arkansas? Number one. So why do this in Northwest Arkansas right now?
Well, I'm from Arkansas, so I've lived in Central Arkansas, Little Rock, Russellville area, and all the growth is in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah,
there's I feel like just about anybody could come up here with some hard work and be successful. In something where I don't think that it's necessarily all other parts of the state have that same mentality.
Yeah.
Like being acceptance, no matter what your age is or whatever, as long as you're talented and you're working hard. Northwest Arkansas, out of everywhere else in the state, I feel like you have a higher success rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot more collaboration up here.
Yeah.
Not building fences around what you're doing. You can go find somebody if you're interested in something, go talk to them, and they'll somebody came in here, I'll tell you everything. I don't have anything to hide because there's plenty of work and there's plenty of things to develop around here. I can't do it all.
No.
So I think that's the reason Northwest Arkansas as successful as it is.
For me, there's kind of two pieces. One is you'd have a hard time dragging me away from Northwest Arkansas because I like living here so much. I mean, it's got a lot. It's going on the weekends, 600,000 people plus, the philanthropic juice that's been injected by, in particular, the Walton family, and that filters through live music and bike trails and all the other wonderful things we all enjoy. But it also is 600,000 people that feels like a couple of small towns because that's what it is right now. But so that's a big piece for me. And I really worry that we lose that if we don't grow thoughtfully. And I spend a lot of time kind of thinking about that stuff. We're hosting the Congress for the New Urbanism next year, and I'm the co-chair of the local host committee along with John McCurdy from Rogers, and we're doing a lot of thinking about how the region grows. Taking it back to kind of just a dollars and cents perspective, though, for investing in Northwest Arkansas, we got in our pitch decks, we've got two graphs that I include in our pitch book, and let me get these for you, where one of them is population growth in the U.S. compared to Northwest Arkansas, and the other one is per capita income growth in the U.S. versus Northwest Arkansas. Northwest Arkansas is stomping the U.S. as a whole in both of them. And I hadn't put this in the pitch book, but I should. The statistic, looking at the income statistics, in 2000, the area median income, and I need to convert it to percentages, but the area median income in Northwest Arkansas was $4,000 per household less, I guess it's per capita, per person less than the U.S. Now we're $11,000 per person higher than the median in the U.S. So massive swing in relative income in Northwest Arkansas, which has all sorts of downstream positive effects.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's from a dollars and cents perspective, it makes a lot of sense, but it's almost unique in that it feels like small town America while having this stuff to do. Like I hadn't even started looking at what I'm going to do this weekend, but there's a million things, there'll be more things to do than I have time to do. So,
yeah, gosh.
And you can get to Buffalo River in an hour and a half,
Yeah.
So,
there's multiple rivers you can go to, or
yeah.
lake.
Yeah, or fantastic lake, beautiful lake,
Yeah.
This is great.
Well, last question, both of you. How do you define success?
Oh, this is, you want me to swing at it first?
I'll let you swing at it first. I've got an idea in my head.
Having fun making a living, and feeling like I've made a relevant impact in the world. So Monday mornings are fun. Like I look forward to Monday. I spend all weekend thinking about what I'm going to be doing on Monday morning. Man, I like this show.
I think for me is it goes back to people and relationships and how many, I love helping people succeed. Either mentoring or, maybe seed money and I've done that several times, to help people get started in a business or what have you. And I always look at it as, I'm looking forward to the day they buy me out, Yeah. So I think it's helping people for me is it.
There's also thinking about the same question and working with the Pendergraft family on Drake Farms. They own the property, and Neil Pendergraft and Mark Blackwood, who are best friends, and Mark's involved with the project as well. They are late 60s, early 70s, and constantly remind me when we have any kind of reach a milestone of any kind, they just constantly say, hey, enjoy it right now, because when you look back, we're going to all make a bunch of money, we're going to all build something beautiful, but when you look back, it's going to be having fun like this that you're going to really appreciate, and the friendships you make doing it. So try to make myself remember that piece. It's not always easy, but that's part of it. Anything that's worth doing is worth is kind of going to be fulfilling in ways that aren't financial.
Yeah.
Good. One of the things we do at the end of every episode is just kind of share the big things that we learned from y'all, and we think our listeners, your business owners, entrepreneurs will learn from y'all as well. And I think the first thing we touched on it pretty early on was just how persistent each of you are, coming from different backgrounds. I mean, constant roadblock after roadblock in this industry that you're in. And yeah, I mean, just being persistent. I think that speaks to any business owner. There's going to be roadblocks and there's going to be things they have to overcome. And so just having a partner, having someone to process through with it, but just to keep going. And I think you guys have modeled that really well. The second thing that really stuck out,
we're stubborn. Like we have a lot of complementary characteristics. But one thing we do share is we're both stubborn as hell.
Hard-headed.
And impatient. We're both impatient and stubborn.
Very
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's required. That's like when somebody asks what's required characteristic to develop real estate well, it's stubbornness is a required characteristic.
It's good.
It's not smart. It's not knowledgeable. It's not hardworking.
It's persistent. Stubborn.
That's good.
Other one.
The second one is conviction, and we talked about that kind of midway through the conversation, but just how convicted you have to be when you walk on a property, whether it's a raw piece of land and envisioning what's going to be there, or a building like 1907 that is just not in a good spot when you're walking through it. But the conviction that you have to bring something like that to life and to do it over a 10, 15, 20-year time horizon, you can't do something like that unless you have conviction around it. And I think every business owner, if you don't have conviction for what you're doing, you won't succeed long term.
That's right. Totally.
And then I think the last thing that I found really fascinating was the word care. And I know that's kind of an interesting word, but the way that you care about the design of your buildings, the way that you care about the durability of your buildings, the way that you're thoughtfully crafting the food and beverage in each of those spaces, there's just a lot of care that goes into those projects. And when we came in here and y'all were like, I don't know what makes us, I don't know what the special sauce is. I think that's the special sauce, is that you care about each project. You care about each, you were even talking about all the little pieces that go into building.
Yeah.
Like you care about those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what sets y'all apart as developers and something that all of us can learn from as business owners. So thanks for teaching us, and thanks for sharing your stories with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The care piece is interesting because there's us caring about it, but when you care about it, it inspires other people to care about it, and that's actually the holy grail. Not us caring about it and doing something, because like we talk about doing art like in the warehouse district, but it's going to be, the tenants are going to be driving the art signage. It's going to be their businesses, and they're going to be inspired by the environment. So we care, but we set the bones in place. And then the people that live there and the tenants that work there, we want it to become theirs as quickly as possible, because organic energy is much more powerful than all the ideas that Jason and I can come up with alone. So inspiring care is maybe even more important than just caring by ourselves.
So good.
Wow. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.